You do everything right. You keep your word. You show up when you say you will. You don't lie. You don't cut corners. And somehow, you're still the one getting burned. People take advantage of your reliability. Your honesty gets read as weakness. And when things go wrong, it's your trust that takes the hit, not theirs. If that sounds familiar, I want to show you why that keeps happening and what a 500-year-old political philosopher understood about trust that most people never learn until it's too late. That philosopher is Niccolò Machiavelli. He wrote in early 16th century Florence during a period when Italian city-states were constantly being invaded, betrayed, and swallowed up by more ruthless neighbors. He'd spent years as a diplomat watching rulers rise and fall, often because they misunderstood how trust actually works in a world full of self-interested people. His book, The Prince, wasn't written as cynicism for its own sake. It was written as a survival manual. And buried inside it are some of the sharpest observations ever made about how trust is built, how it's exploited, and how you protect it before someone else spends it for you. Today, 3 of those rules, translated out of politics and into your actual life. Rule number 1, your reputation matters more than your intentions. Machiavelli makes a distinction that most people never think to make: the difference between actually being good and being seen as reliable. He wasn't telling rulers to be dishonest for sport. He was pointing out something uncomfortable. People don't respond to your inner character because they can't see it. They respond to the pattern you show them. He uses this image of a ruler needing the cunning of a fox alongside the strength of a lion. The lion can't detect a trap, and the fox can't fend off wolves. You need both instincts. The fox part is the one people resist accepting because it sounds manipulative. But what he's really arguing is that consistency of behavior, not purity of motive, is what earns durable trust. A ruler who keeps promises rigidly, even when the world around him has changed and the other side has already broken faith, isn't being virtuous, he's being exploitable. So Machiavelli's actual claim is precise. Keep your word whenever the conditions that earned that word still hold. But don't treat a promise as sacred once the other party has already violated the spirit of the deal. Trust, in his framework, isn't a moral constant. It's a contract that only one side is honoring at a time, and you have to watch for the moment that changes. Rule number 2, never let your security depend entirely on someone else's goodwill. This comes out of one of the most famous arguments in the whole book, the discussion of whether it's better to be loved or feared. Most people who've heard of this line think Machiavelli is just saying, be scary. That's not the actual argument. His real point is about where control sits. Love, he says, is maintained by a bond of gratitude, and gratitude is fragile, because it depends entirely on the other person's character, and people are, in his words, generally ungrateful, fickle, and self-interested the moment their own advantage is on the line. So if your security depends on someone continuing to feel warmly toward you, you've handed them the steering wheel. Fear, on the other hand, or in a softer modern translation, respect backed by consequence, is maintained by you. It doesn't require the other person to keep being generous. It only requires that they understand there's a cost to betraying you. Machiavelli isn't telling you to intimidate people. He's telling you not to build your entire position on the assumption that someone else will keep choosing to be kind to you. That assumption is the single most common way trust gets broken. Not through some dramatic betrayal, but through quietly overestimating how much someone else's goodwill can be counted on to hold steady. Rule number 3. Assume people will act in their own interest and build your trust accordingly. This is the deepest and most misunderstood part of Machiavelli's thinking. He's often read as saying people are evil. He's not. What he actually argues, especially when talking about how rulers get betrayed by those closest to them, is that most people aren't driven by loyalty or malice. They're driven by circumstance. Someone will honor a bond right up until honoring it costs them something they're not willing to pay. That's not villainy. That's just how self-interest works under pressure. Machiavelli's advice, translated out of its political context, is to stop treating trust as something you either fully extend or fully withhold, and start treating it as something you calibrate. Know what a person's incentives actually are before you decide how much weight to put on their word. Someone can be entirely sincere in the moment they promise you something, and still fold the second the cost changes. He's not telling you to become paranoid. He's telling you that naivety, assuming people's character alone will hold under pressure, is exactly what gets careful, well-meaning people repeatedly burned. Here's what this looks like off the page. Say you've got a friend or a business partner who's always been reliable, and then a moment comes where their own interest and your interest split. Maybe money's involved. Maybe it's a job opportunity. Maybe it's just convenience. If you were the type who assumed their loyalty was permanent, that's the moment it usually breaks, and it blindsides you specifically because you never built in the awareness that it could. That's rule 3 in action. Not being cynical about people, just not being shocked when self-interest shows up exactly where Machiavelli said it would. Or think about a relationship where you've been the one who never breaks a promise, never flakes, never lets the other person down, and you've noticed they've started taking that for granted. That's rule 1. You kept the agreement intact even as the other side quietly stopped matching it. Machiavelli would say the failure isn't that you were honest, it's that you kept extending the same trust after the terms had already shifted, without ever recalibrating. And think about a work situation where your entire standing depends on one manager liking you. No formal recognition, no track record on paper, just their personal favor. The day their mood changes, or they move on, your position evaporates with them. That's rule 2. You outsourced your security to someone else's goodwill instead of building something that didn't require them to keep feeling generous toward you. Now, here's where people usually take this the wrong way. They hear, "Don't rely on someone's goodwill," and "assume self-interest," and they turn it into permanent suspicion, treating everyone like a threat, refusing to actually depend on anybody, keeping score in every relationship. That's not what Machiavelli is describing, and it's actually the opposite of functional. A ruler who trusts no one can't govern, because governing requires alliances. What he's describing isn't the absence of trust. It's trust that's earned in layers and reevaluated as circumstances change, rather than trust that's granted once and assumed to be permanent. The mistake isn't extending trust. The mistake is extending it and then never checking whether the conditions that justified it are still true. Protecting your trust doesn't mean guarding yourself from everyone. It's staying awake while you trust people, noticing when the terms shift instead of finding out the hard way, months later, that they already had. If there's one sentence to take from all of this, it's this: trust isn't something you give once and forget about. It's something you have to keep watching, the same way you'd watch anything else valuable enough for someone else to want to take from you. If this kind of thinking is useful to you, stick around. This channel's built on ideas exactly like this one.